I want to start actually by thanking you, Jeff and Patrick, for telling the story about Greg's broken arm, so now I don't have to live with that secret from Jack Roush. It was a hard one to keep. It's a pretty funny story, too. Thank you all for being here. I'm Greg's niece, Jordan. It was the honor and a privilege of Greg's life to be part of the NASCAR family. He never took that opportunity for granted. To him, NASCAR wasn't just a career, it was a brotherhood, and one he was incredibly proud to be considered part of. He looked up to so many of you. He appreciated every hand that touched a car, every role that made race day possible, and every ounce of work that went into what we all know is an incredible feat. To Greg's fans, I want you to know how deeply he loved you, genuinely. Every interaction mattered to him. He would come back to the motorhome, he would tell us who he met, the stories you shared, and the laughter you had together. You made a lasting impression on him. He read the letters that you would send to him. He proudly showed people memorabilia and photos that you sent to him, especially anything from his early days at Tri-City Raceway or Portland Speedway. Thank you for supporting him, for remembering where he came from, and for sharing those memories with him. I want to give you just a little glimpse into Greg's life outside of NASCAR. One of the most pivotal stories Greg ever shared with me about his childhood was how much he struggled in school. He struggled to focus, to sit still, to learn the way he was being taught. And that's something many people can relate to. My grandfather refused to let him fail. He sat Greg down with a motorcycle catalog and said, "Let's read this together." He took him to the steel yard and said, "Let's work on this together." He invested time, he found what sparked Greg's curiosity, and he gave him space to explore it. We would not have Greg Biffle without the dedication, patience, and belief of Jack and Sally. That's not to say Greg didn't still get in trouble. I've heard and will continue to hear all of the stories from high school and NASCAR races, everything. The trouble he caused, the cops always looking for his car. It was a small town and everybody knew exactly who was behind the wheel. He lived life fast and fully, and he loved to make people smile, especially if they were screaming and white-knuckling a handlebar at the same time. Greg built chassis in my grandfather's shop. If you want to talk about somebody who truly understood what he was doing, it was Greg. He welded the very chassis he would go on to race, and he knew the machines inside and out because he built them himself. We watched races every Sunday, just like all of you. I'd be outside playing in the yard, and I could hear my grandma yell from inside the house, "Dig, Biffle, dig, faster!" Just all the way outside, just always cheering him on. Something I always admired about Greg and was constantly amazed by was his raw talent for almost anything. He could try something just once and be good at it. That's not to say that he didn't make the rules up as he went along, and if you've ever played a round of golf with him, you know exactly what I talk about. But he was humble, kind, fun, and incredibly smart. Christina and Greg were destined to find each other. They complemented one another in a way that I've rarely seen. They were both big dreamers, tireless workers, and deeply committed to supporting their friends, their family, and even complete strangers. Giving back wasn't loud for them. It wasn't performative. It was simply part of who they were. Whether it was animal welfare, hurricane relief, or helping someone cover medical bills, they showed up. On every trip they took, they spent an entire morning walking the beach with a trash bag, picking up trash before allowing themselves to relax. In 2017, after Hurricane Irma, Greg loaded a trailer full of generators and gas cans and drove them to Florida himself to deliver power and fuel to stranded families. Two of his dogs, Axel and Lily, came from a litter of puppies that were evacuated from a shelter during that same storm. Hurricane Helene wasn't the beginning of their giving, and it certainly wasn't the end. Christina was a force of nature. She was a true juggernaut. If she thought of something that she wanted to do, she tried it and usually succeeded, very similarly to Greg. She started by thrifting and reselling clothes. She's written a book. She has actually created a business from one of her $1 million ideas. It's a fun game we like to play. She constantly set goals for herself, and she had the strongest entrepreneurial spirit I've ever known. But more than that, she was the fiercest supporter of women and her friends. The word no did not exist in her vocabulary. She believed the only thing that could limit your potential was yourself, and if you said you were too busy, which I'm very guilty of, she wouldn't accept that as an excuse. She was fearless, but she had the biggest heart. She wanted to bring people together, and she did, often. We have a group chat, I'll out them right now, the YOLO Sisterhood. We have 20 women in that group chat, and Christina was the cornerstone of all of us, all of our best friends. Christina became my best friend, one of the best friends that I've ever had. She was always there, always ready to support you in anything. One of my favorite memories was just cooking dinner for her. Cooking was not her strong suit, but when she just wanted a calm night, she'd come over, curl up on the couch with Ryder, share a meal with us as a family. And from the first day I met her, I knew I liked her. She was completely herself, unfiltered, grounded, and real. She asked for help when she needed it, and she gave it freely in return. She was protective of Greg, made sure he was taken care of, and somehow fit into our family in a way that elevated all of us. And she was absolutely perfect to us and to me, and we love her so much. Ryder had really big dreams of being just like his dad, not because it was ever pushed or talked about, but because he genuinely thought Greg was the coolest person that he had ever known, and I really don't disagree with him at all. Ryder was exactly what you'd imagine Greg and Christina's son to be: wild, loud, spirited, but with the most tender heart. His mom was his lifeline, and he always found comfort in her arms. He was gentle with my son, Jack, wanting to help him learn, even trying to force him to hold a die-cast car in his hand when he was just a newborn. Ryder went to school at the church, but his real education happened in the shop. He was barely 2 years old, grabbing tools, pretending to change tires. He popped the tires off of every toy he owned, including Greg's die-cast cars, just so he could try to put them back on, never successfully. Speaking from experience, growing up around a shop gives you some of the best memories of your life. The smell of oil and metal, the sound of tools, the quiet focus mixed with laughter, it all stays with you forever. Those smells and moments can imprint on you. Some of us are lucky enough to grow up around that world for a lifetime, and Ryder was one of them. That was his place, and he belonged there. He later started martial arts to learn discipline and channel his energy. You could see Christina's eyes and just enormous smile in him, along with her determination as he worked toward each new belt. Ryder carried the very, very best pieces of both Christina and Greg. Emma was a deeply special girl to so many people. She's missed beyond words by her mom, her family, and her friends. And there's an irreparable hole in so many hearts. Emma brought kindness and laughter everywhere she went, effortlessly. Her sense of humor was perfectly timed. She'd say something unexpected and then laugh so hard she could barely get the words out. As I went through photos and videos of Emma, it was always her laughter that made me hit record. At her core, Emma was the gentlest soul. She cared deeply about the people around her and wanted everyone to feel happy and safe. She was thoughtful and careful with others' feelings, and that kindness showed up in everything she did. Emma was the kind of friend people are lucky to have. She knew when to speak up, when to stand up for others, and how to do so with empathy and grace. Her emotional intelligence was far beyond her years. That same compassion extended to her love of animals. She adored her dogs and often talked about wanting to be a vet. When I reminded her that being a vet isn't always rainbows and butterflies, she simply said she just wanted to help. And that says everything about who Emma was. She was sweet, gentle, fun, and truly remarkable. Greg, Christina, Ryder, and Emma lived fully, loved deeply, and gave freely. Their lives remind us that what matters isn't how long we're here, but how we use the time we're given and how fiercely we love while we're here. While this loss is devastating beyond words, their impact remains, etched into all of us who were lucky enough to know them, love them, and be changed by them. We carry them forward in the way we live, the way we give, and the way we show up for one another. They will always be part of us.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Burton, a teammate of Greg's, a friend of Greg's. When I was asked to do this, I wasn't sure if I was the right person to do it, because I want to be sure that everybody really gets to know who Greg was and the kind of guy that he was. So I decided to reach out to a lot of Greg's friends and people that knew Greg and knew him in a lot of different ways. The first person I reached out to was Jack Roush. Phil did a great job of explaining how that relationship started. Greg was a Jack kind of driver. Jack Roush wants drivers, wanted them then and still has them today, that are going to do more than just show up and drive. He wanted drivers that were going to get their hands dirty, get in there and work with the team, find a way to be part of the team, the leader when need to be, and the kind of guy that can listen to leadership when he needs to. A person that would enjoy the process of what it takes to build a winning team and a winning car. How do you build fast race cars? Well, I'm going to tell you something. Greg was all of that for Jack Roush. He knew how to build them. He knew how to set them up. He knew how to load them in the hauler. He knew every part of it. But what he really knew was how to maximize the opportunity that that car gave him. He wasn't just a driver. He was an extension of that race car. It was part of him. He loved that part of it, and he was really good at it. He knew a faster car was an advantage to him, and he was going to do anything he could to make sure he had a faster car. Now, don't get me wrong, he was also an incredible race car driver. Tons of speed. Jack Roush told me he remembers the time when Mark Martin, and for those in the audience that have experienced this, Mark told Jack that he can't get in Greg's car and make it go faster. And that was a rare thing. Mark told me of a time at Watkins Glen at a test where he was struggling with his race car, wasn't going fast, and Greg was out there hauling ass, making great time. So Mark, being Mark, he's like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to get in Greg's car. Now, I want you to understand, when Mark will walk down that garage and he's going to get in your car, he's going to go faster than you, and everybody knew it. He'd come down there, Mark's about this tall. He'd come down there, get in your car, and get shop rags and shove them all around him, get fitted in that car. I see some guys laughing because they've experienced it. He's going to get ready, back that car out of the garage, and the problem with that is he's getting ready to hurt your feelings because he's going to go faster than you went. Everybody gathers around. All the crews from other teams that gather around, they're going to watch this. Mark goes out. Greg's nervous. He is because every driver that Mark's following is nervous. Mark goes out there, and after a couple laps, Mark realizes it's not this race car that's faster than me, it's Greg that's faster than me. And I want you guys to think about that. Mark is one of the fastest race car drivers this sport has ever known. Greg was pushing Mark Martin to be a better race car driver. I had a fun conversation with Kurt Busch. Kurt recognized that Greg's middle name was Jack. And that was perfect because Greg was a jack of all trades. He designed his own late models in the 90s. He had motorcycles, custom four-wheelers, 1,000-horsepower sand rails, side-by-sides, boat, jet skis, you name it, he had it. And if he had it, it wasn't something he bought off the floor. He either got it and redid it, or he took a brand-new piece and tried to make it better. He did that, and he drove it. Kurt noticed that his creativity was one of his best qualities, along with the ability to put other people first, and he always had a big heart. He also had this amazing ability to have that big heart and help everybody, but when he got in his race car, it was about him and his team. It was time at that point to be selfish. He won in everything he drove. You think about it, he won a Truck Series championship, an O'Reilly's championship. He came that close to winning a Cup Series championship. He came that close to winning all three. Now think about that. That is amazing. Kurt remembers messing around with Greg in Michigan when they were both young race car drivers, driving for Jack in the Truck Series. I can only imagine the amount of rental car damage done in those years. And I'm sure there were a few tickets along the way, but Kurt remembers those things, just those days will never be replaced. Kurt also, he and I had a great conversation, and I had this conversation with Mark Martin and Matt Kenseth as well. When we were all at Roush Racing, one of the things that we all felt like that we did was we got ahead a little bit of other companies in regard to teammates. You know, it's really hard to be a teammate. You're literally working to help that guy beat you. Doesn't make sense. It takes special people to do that. How do you set your selfish side apart and try to do something to help the guy beat you? And I feel like Roush Racing got ahead of that a little bit, and Greg played a major role in that. Because when you won a race, he could have run 30th. And don't get me wrong, he was mad. He would get mad when he didn't run well. But he was genuinely happy that you had run well. It takes a special person to do that. Had a conversation with Carl Edwards, and this was touching to me when he told me this moment. Greg was being honored at a Hall of Fame event. And Carl got his eyes on Emma, Greg's daughter. And he said the look of Emma's eyes, looking at her dad with admiration, with pride, with love, was something that Carl would never forget. And this one's going to get a few people in trouble. Patrick Rogers, who's here today, was Greg's PR guy when Greg first started racing for Roush. And he was still working with Greg when Greg was a rookie in the Cup Series. One night, Patrick was at home, innocently at home, gets a call from Greg. Greg's broken his arm, and there's a race coming up. Now, Greg broke his arm by climbing in the motorhome, which just happened to be out at the sand dunes where there's sand rails and 1,000-horsepower cars and four-wheelers, but the story was he broke it getting in the motorhome. He had concocted a plan, and he needed Patrick to play along with this. He's not going to tell anybody about his broken arm, because when you're a rookie, you can't go out and have fun and break your arm and show up at the racetrack. That's a good way to lose your job. So Greg is going to hide this from the entire world. Just so happened to be the race was in Fontana, California, and for those of you that have been in Fontana, California, at certain times of the year, it's hot. It's really hot. So Greg's normally early at the track, wants to get with his team, hang out, do his stuff. Not this week. Greg shows up as late as possible. Gets to the car, and he's got a winter coat on. In Fontana, California, in the middle of the heat, it's like 118 out there. He's got a winter coat on because he's hiding a cask, right? He's got to hide it. So he shows up late to practice. Practice is over. He gets out of the car, leaves. He went so far as to rent a motorhome to have a place to hide throughout the week. He had to stay completely away from everybody. I want Jack Roush to know I had nothing to do with any of this. So Greg's team eventually catches on, and as good teams do, they worked along with Greg. We're going to keep this a secret, right? We're going to not let anybody know it. That's what teammates do. That's what his team do. None of the other drivers knew it. So he's avoiding everybody. He's avoiding the media. He's avoiding everybody. The race starts. Everything's going pretty decent until there's an early restart. Greg spins out on a restart. Imagine that, driving one arm. He spun out. He lost a couple laps, but he went on and he completed the race. He finished one lap down in 18th. And a bit of humility from me, I finished 19th without a broken arm. 7 races later, Greg Biffle went on to win his first Cup race at Daytona. He positively influenced an entire industry. He was loved by his family and his friends. He left a mark, and he'll be greatly missed.
So there is no more meaningful way we can all show our love, respect, and honor to Dennis, Jack, Craig, Emma, Ryder, Christina, and Greg. Would you pray with me? Father, for the next little bit, this place becomes a place where we ask that you would dwell and be powerfully present. Father, no one can bring comfort and peace in a time like this like you can, nor can anybody help us to share stories and memories that will not only touch our hearts, but the lives of others, Father, like you can. So in the name of your Son, Jesus, Father, I just ask that you would fill this place with your presence. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.
The story of how Benny and Greg first met has been told many times over the years, and it's such a great one, I wanted to share a bit more about it. About 30 years ago, when Greg was just getting started with his career, he traveled all the way from his home in Washington to Tucson, Arizona to race in a series called Winter Heat. This was during the off-season for all the NASCAR teams, and ESPN televised all the races live every Sunday afternoon. using the same announcers who called all the big NASCAR races throughout the year. Of course, this included BP. And because he was such a racer himself, it didn't take him long to spot a star in the making in Greg Biffle. He was so impressed with so much of what he saw in Greg, and driving talent was only part of it. Greg built his own race car, knew everything about how to make it run faster than the competition. And he had a charisma which drew in people. On top of all this, BP recognized a passion and a drive in Greg, traits which served him well way back when he was just starting out in his own racing career. See, Greg was a real racer too. Back in the mid-2000s, we were at IRP doing a truck race on speed, and Greg was a guest in the booth with Rick Allen, Kenny Wallace, and myself. He was supposed to be there for only a couple segments, but when we went to commercial after those 2 segments, our producer thanked Greg and said he could leave. Greg said he would like to stay if that was okay, and he stayed with us for the rest of the race. He loved being there, and we loved having him. Anyway, not too long after those races in Tucson, BP bumped into Jack Roush, who was lamenting the fact that he couldn't find young drivers for his truck team. BP told Jack about Greg and told him he should hire him before someone else did. The rest, they say, is history, only it became more than that. In the years since, Greg always took the time to credit BP for helping him get the shot with Roush Racing. And he went out of his way to be there at events which were important to BP, such as a golf tournament held each year in Elkin, North Carolina, to raise money to fight hunger in Wilkes County, where BP was born and raised. Greg not only attended the tournament every year, he went to the grocery store where the money raised was used for the families who needed it. He was there in early December for this past year's event. I think that shows what type of person Greg was, someone who always thought of others first. Of course, all of Western North Carolina can vouch for that. Greg's efforts in the fall of 2024 to help those impacted by Hurricane Helene became the stuff of legend, something I know firsthand. Mike Adams, the president of a company which had sponsored Stephen, was concerned about his sister, who was living in the western part of the state when the hurricane hit. Mike asked if we could ask Greg for help, and of course he agreed to do it. He was the first person to reach Mike's sister after the flooding when he brought her some supplies. That was Greg, someone who never stopped doing what he could to make the world a better place. He was an inspiration to me and everyone he met. That's what I will remember most about him. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to try and do this with a little bit of a smile on my face because I think that's what Greg would want. Who here is proud of Greg Biffle? Any of you? You guys proud? Come on, guys. Smart boy. I have some good stories in here. If I get choked up, I'm going to have to start with one of those. Sorry. All right, let's start with a good story. Greg one time took my race suit to wash it for me. What a nice guy. Actually, he hemmed it. He made it 4 inches shorter so that my ankles were exposed to direct sunlight. And did not tell me this until I was suiting up to get in my race car. I put my suit on like last second, right? And I'm like, what the heck is going on with my suit? The thing's, my ankles are out to here, and I just couldn't believe what a hilarious prank this guy came up with to make my day a little bit brighter. And that was how Biff was. All right, let me get reorganized here. Oh, jeez. All right, let's see here. So, I can't believe we're even talking about our boy, the Biff. This doesn't really feel real. Mr. the Biff is what we called him. I'm about to tell another story. This is what I have this for, though. Hold on. This is a good one. We went to Glamis with Biff. Garza brought his four-wheeler out. He had just put a new throttle on it, right? He's got it dialed in. And we're like, Biff, you got to ride Garza's four-wheeler. And there's this huge hill in Glamis, right? Biff gets on this thing, and he's gone. And we're like, damn, the old man still got it. I mean, from the bottom of the hill to the top, Biff is wide open throttle. And it's pretty whooped out, right? He comes back. He's like, damn, Garza, the throttle's stuck on this thing the moment I left. It was so damn funny. All right. So I'll admit, me and the guys, we didn't really know much about Greg before we met him in 2024. He came out to our Connecticut race on a whim, and after a few minutes of talking about helicopters and Crown Vics, I knew we'd be good friends. I didn't expect us to become nearly best friends, and I say nearly because I can't claim the position of best friend. His best friend was with him on the plane that day, Craig Wadsworth. Craig and Biff were always together when we'd meet up for an epic adventure. Craig would drive 1,000 miles easily and arrive looking refreshed with a smile on his face. I mean, literally, he would drive from Charlotte to Glamis nonstop and show up looking clean, ready for fun. My heart breaks for Craig's family and all of his friends here today. One thing I'm most heartbroken about is never getting to see Ryder behind the wheel of a race car. Can you imagine? The first time I met Ryder, I said, "Hey buddy, what's up?" as his mom kind of introduced me. He simply responded by saying, "Did you know my dad is a Craftsman Series champion?" And I was like, "I did know that, brother. Thank you for the info." And like, that was just a perfect example of his attitude and how proud he was of his dad. So proud. Staying at Biff's house on Lake Norman meant you were going for an evening trail ride with Ryder. He loved leading myself and all of my guys here on his dirt bike trails, and I'm honored to be one of the very few people that have been in a racing incident with Ryder Biffle. Him and I were racing down Greg's driveway when Ryder and I accidentally ran into each other. Actually, I think I got a little heavy on the brakes into the turn. Ryder was a little behind on the brakes, and bam, there we were, grinding to a halt on the asphalt. Now, I'm thinking this kid's gonna be crying big time here. But as I looked at him, he was actually smiling and laughing and insisted on racing again. And luckily it was dark out, so I don't think his wounds showed as easily to his mom and dad, who probably would have been a little more worried about me racing with him. But hey, Ryder hit it and we kept on racing. Ryder and his sister Emma were great kids. It's truly heartbreaking that we don't get to see them grow up. One thing that Greg taught me about kids is if you're having a busy day and your kids are saying, "Daddy, Daddy, I need, I want to do this or do that." Greg told me, just stop. Take 5-10 minutes. They really don't need that much time. Their attention spans are so short. But if you take that time, it really fulfills their day. And I use it religiously with my kids. It really works well, and I encourage you guys to all try it. All right, Christina, winner of the 2025 Mom Prix. Come on, make some noise for my girl. Can I get a napkin, Maddie? Hold on. All right. Sorry, I'm a mess. I wish I rehearsed this a little better. Thought it'd go a little smoother. All right. Christina, winner of the Mom Prix. She was truly a special woman. She was smart, extremely smart, very sharp, didn't forget anything, very tuned into social media and technology, which is the only, and I repeat, only reason Greg had any presence online in these recent years. So everything you guys got to see with me and just Greg on his own, whatever, it's because of Christina making that happen. I mean, that girl was his lifeline to the internet. So although Greg was cool, none of you guys would have known it if it wasn't for Christina, okay? So I got to give her some credit there. We'd be at dinner and she'd be selling a house or booking someone a trip or renting one of her properties. She was extremely impressive with how easily she did stuff. All right, let me find out here where we're at. All right. Christina was very well organized, while Biff ran a rather loose program, you could say. They were so different, and maybe that's why they were perfect for each other. Lastly, she was a great mother. She brought Ryder to so many of our events and kept him close to the action, but not too close. She was very confident in how she parented as well, which was always inspiring to Maddie and I when we're struggling with our little ones. Also, my heart goes out to the family and friends of Dennis and Jack Dutton. You know, being a pilot, I know everyone worries about us, and that's the last call you want to get for two pilots there. All right. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the Biff. Boy, did I love this guy. My friends and I here, we really looked up to him. It's kind of funny. There's like 10 or 15 of us in my friend group. We're all in our 30s. And, but then we have, well, I can't count out Mr. Sam. We got Mr. Sam, he's 80. But then we have Biff, who's 25 years older than all of us. And, man, he was exactly like us, though. 20 years older than us, exactly like us to a T. Fit into our group so well. We all loved hanging out with Greg so much. I can't tell you how much we loved it. But from what I've been told, Greg was not always this way. He was not always this carefree, hilarious guy you saw in the videos. He was a little different, right? Apparently, in his young days, he was a bit of a troublemaker. As you heard some of the stories, did a burnout in front of the high school front doors, got expelled, and also had his car impounded by his father, which, you know, I can see how that could happen easily. Then later in life, I guess Greg was very serious about his race program. Like, he lived, breathed, and solely focused on racing cars. And he was just totally locked in on motorsports. So I'm proud to say that I was able to meet Greg at the perfect time. It turns out, I think Greg might have been born to be a YouTuber. He just didn't realize it until he was 54. And at this point in his life, you know, Greg had his priorities pretty dialed in, I would say, as an outlooker, you know, looking out from the outside in. And I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure these are his priorities in life. And you can cheer for the order if you think it's right, okay? Number one, God. There you go. Number two, family. That's a good one, right? Number three, helping other humans. Number four, Facebook Marketplace. Anybody? There we go. Number five, Glamis, sand dunes. Number six, turning left. Love that. And number seven, being an American badass. Those were Greg's priorities, I think. And I'm sorry, Greg, if I spoke for you and I missed one, but I thought long and hard about his favorite things. That seemed to be them. Anyway, what I'm saying at this point is Greg's life, you know, for Greg's life, he had met the love of his life, Christina. He had two beautiful kids. He had worked very hard and set himself up well, and now is spending his time freely. And my friends and I were lucky enough to be around for this. So I'm going to use the rest of my time to share some stories. All right, let's see here. All right, I'm sorry to start with this one, Greg, if you're watching down on us right now, brother. And where's Christina's girlfriends at? Right here. I'm going to watch you guys when I say this. Greg always forgot Christina's drink. You guys know about this? I mean, every single time we went to like a bar or anything, it was just hysterical. Like, he would just grab a drink. Shoot, he'd grab me one, but he forgot Christina's drink, and Christina was hilariously responding to him every time, just on him about it. It was a recurring thing. I remember the first time Christina said it, she goes, "He always forgets my drink." I'm like, oh, every girl says that about their husband. But Greg forgot it every time. All right, one of my favorite stories is Greg and I were racing $5,000 RVs that we had bought. And this is actually a video on the internet. Greg got us access to a dirt oval for our RVs. And he took off on me, and I was trying my hardest to chase him down. It's like lap 4. But what I didn't know is that on the second lap, actually the first lap, Greg's RV curtain had closed in front of him. And so he's looking through this like 2-inch gap in his curtains. You know the RV curtains when you go to sleep, they cover the whole window of a Class A? He's racing me, and he can't reach the curtains. So I'm trying my hardest to catch him. He can't even see. And I didn't even know that till the race ended, but it's so funny. All right, the next one is also from the cheap RV trip, and this has been a secret until today. Many of you who watch the channel have probably wondered about this. Okay, so we stopped in a really nice RV park in Georgia. I mean, really nice. It was about 11 p.m. when we got settled in, so we decided to hit the pool. And they had this beautiful pool area. This park was brand new, beautiful pool area. And they had a bad to the bone, 3-story tall water slide. This was a sweet setup. Well, anyways, it's all shut down because it's 11 p.m. So Greg's like, well, let's just go up them. It just rained, so the slides are lubricated. We'll go down them. And I was like, okay. So we go down them one time, and then we're like, all right, we can probably get one more with the amount of water left on the slides. We go back up, and like a tsunami, water comes pouring out of the top of the water slides. My boy Jack Stand here, I don't know where he's at, had turned on the water slides. And so you got to understand, these are like massive industrial pumps that he found the activation button for. And it was so loud. I mean, it's 11 p.m., right? So this water is roaring down these slides. They're huge. And Greg and I are like riding the slides, right? We're going down, we're running back up. It was like we were 10 years old. And probably on our 3rd or 4th ride down the slide. I have this on video, by the way. Never released. Might have to release it now. The employees come running into the pool area. Hey! We're like, oh. We grab our stuff. We know we're about to get in some serious trouble. And I'm like, we got Biff and Mr. Sam with us, We totally shouldn't be doing this. We were ready to take a chewing, rightfully so. As the guy starts to yell at us, which I'm not saying that he wasn't out of place to yell at us, Greg claims in front of the rest of us, there's about 7 of us, he goes, I was just using the shower. And he literally picks up our cooler of beer, throws his towel over his shoulder, and walks away. Like, am I telling this with perfect accuracy? And the guy never once claimed his association with us. The guy didn't go, hold on, buddy. Greg was gone. I watched him walk off into the darkness. I'm like, damn. We got back to the RV. He's completely bone dry, wearing, normal clothes. Looks like nothing ever happened. Like, I was like, bro, you left us. It was so funny. Oh my gosh. One time I don't know how much time I have. I'm just going to keep going for a few more. Sorry, folks. One time I made a bet with Greg that if I won, he could not wear his sleeves for a month. And he accepted the bet, and I won the bet. And he literally went on a ski trip with his family, and there's photos of him on the slopes with no sleeves. He fulfilled the bet perfectly. And one time we were in Las Vegas, and it was still the 1 month where he couldn't wear sleeves, and we're down on the strip, and we would usually let him come out of his room with his sleeves on, and then we'd rip them off as part of, some sort of weird ceremonial thing we would do. Well, this time we were a couple drinks in. There's also a video of this, and I said, Biff, we got to get those sleeves off. He's wearing a nice dress shirt. And I remember I grabbed this sleeve, and I was also a little tuned up. And I yanked his sleeve like I've never yanked a sleeve in my life. And instead of his shirt tearing, it sort of exploded. And so the whole side of his shirt was gone with the sleeve. And we're like, how are we going to get in the casino? So the security guy in front of the casino is like, Greg Biffle? And his shirt's torn, and he's a little tuned up. He's like, come on in. We played $5 blackjack the rest of the night. Literally had the time of our lives. All right. Another good one. I was flying into Charlotte in my helicopter. We always loved going to Biff's house on Lake Norman. You're landing at Biff's mansion in a helicopter. There's nothing cooler than that, right? Well, it's about 10 p.m. My helicopter has an excellent GPS system in it. Despite that, Greg thought it was a good idea to light a signal, some sort of way for me to spot his house from the air, because, you know, my GPS obviously is not accurate enough. So as I'm approaching his house, I see this massive fire, huge, like probably a square acre of grass on fire. And the flames are, what'd you say, George, 10 feet? They were burning. They were burning. Well, Greg had lit his yard on fire as a smoke signal for us to find his house. We had already found his house, but anyways, that was really nice of him. And I was like, but it was also the same spot he wanted me to land. I was like, brother, how can I land while the LZ is on fire? But it was pretty funny. Oh man, the list goes on. I have a couple bonus ones. I'm just going to look at them and see if they're worth telling, but that was all the ones I had in my main speech. Oh, here they are. Oh. One time I was doing about 60 in my RV down the interstate. Nothing going on for an hour until he rear-ended it so hard my neck about snapped. That was a polite bump draft. Oh, this is a good one. He lost his keys in Daytona, and he drove over to my RV to say hello. Lost his keys. The keys are gone. So his car won't start. He's looking for them for an hour, and we're just hanging out. Actually, Christina was looking for them. We were doing nothing to help the situation, and Christina finally said, I'm calling an Uber. So they left the rental car. The keys are on the dash of my RV. So Greg gets a ride back the next day, and he goes, got the keys, when he comes in, you know, that we had found them, and he left after the race. And he drove back to the marina, which during the Daytona 500, that's about an hour drive, even though it's 5 miles. Well, Greg left the keys on the dash of my RV because he started his car, walked in, said, got them, literally set them down and left. So now his car was disabled at the marina. It was just so funny. When we first met Greg and we did all the hurricane help, it was kind of that, we made the connection that it was like, hey, we go to Glamis in the fall, you go to Glamis in the fall, let's line up a trip. So I sent all of our equipment out, all of our race cars and four-wheelers and whatever, and we got there, and so we didn't really know Greg that well yet, but he used a telehandler and put our equipment on the roof of his building. We were like, what the heck? We pulled up, I see Garza's four-wheeler like 20 feet in the air on the roof. That's just the type of guy Biff was. All right, that's good on the stories. I got a lot more. All right, Greg was hilarious. He was kind, a great racer, and an amazing father. He cared about everyone. He was welcoming and so inclusive to anybody around him. If you were standing in a group of people and you were you didn't know Greg at all, he would take a second to say something, say hello, introduce himself. He showed up for his friends. He never missed one, not one of my Crown Vic races or one of my NASCAR races since I met him in 2024. I mean, not one race did he miss. We've all been saying, be like Biff, since we lost our hero. And what does that mean? That means to take opportunities when you see them. Whether you're taking the opportunity to pass somebody on the track, or getting off your couch and chasing a dream you've only been talking about for the last 5 years. It means showing up for your friends and family. It means using your heart to make the world a better place. It means being generous whenever you can and helping other humans when they're down. That is what it means to be like Biff. So spread the word. Be like Biff. Rest in peace to the Biffle family, Craig, and the Duns.
Welcome to the Inner Circle. This isn't just a membership, it's a mission. You're supporting forensic truth, mythic blends, and ceremonial broadcasts that honor every moment. Members unlock exclusive enhancements, behind-the-scenes alerts, and direct access to the pulse of Timescape news and leading sponsor, Gold Rush Fever Specialty Coffee. Join us and help shape the signal. We thank you And as always, stay safe. That's the latest from Timescape News. We're live. We're watching. We thank you. Subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell so you don't miss what breaks next. Stay with us. We appreciate you. And as always, be safe.